It's a beautiful Monday morning right here at High Impact Television. My name is Esther Kalu, and I'm glad to bring you the newspaper review this morning from wherever you're watching us from. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the newspaper review. What we do on the review is quite simple. We take stories that have made the headlines on various papers across the world. In Nigeria, we start with the Punch newspaper, to the Guardian, the Vanguard newspaper as well, and then to Star in Kenya and Standard Digital. And then we move to Khaleej Times in the UAE, to the Times UK, and wrap it up with the Washington Post. We are joined again by our analysts for this morning. Babajide, thanks for joining us this morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the newspaper review.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I'll start with the Punch newspaper. First of all, the story that has to do with, the blocking of highways in the Kaduna-Abuja Expressway. And Governor Nasir El-Rufai has come out to, have a conversation with the community. First things, there's been questions was that an extreme move from the community to block the highway? I mean, just to be able to get answers concerning the issue of banditry in their community?
Well, it might be seen as extreme by some people, especially the helpless travelers who were stranded. But you have to understand the plight of these communities who have practically been sitting ducks to bandits and kidnappers and all forms of criminalities. So they will take any measure to make their voices heard. So I think that's what happened in Kaduna State.
Okay, but also it doesn't. Also, we have in the papers this morning that states cry for cops and bandits change strategies, attack schools en masse. Do you see a pattern here, especially with the way schools in some specific locations are being attacked?
Yes, there's definitely a pattern there.
Okay.
Because the headline says, but the reality and the helps the whole country have as a whole. Nigeria has less than 400,000 policemen as a whole. So how many can they draft to such trouble areas? Because I read that story, and the school that was attacked, it was reported that there were actually 22 policemen on ground when that attack occurred. So when you have 22 and they were still not able to repel these bandits and kidnappers, then it tells you that drafting policemen to schools cannot be the solution. It's just a stopgap. It cannot be the solution. We cannot be waiting for kidnappers to attack, then we'll the attack. We have to take the fight to them. So it is not enough to just keep posting more and more policemen to schools. I think that is my take on that.
Okay, if you're looking at this as policemen not being the issue, the number of policemen not being the solution, rather, what do you suggest that states, governments should do, or school authorities or parents should do at this point in time to try to protect the students?
Yes, we have to look at the problem holistically. We have to look at it from the root, like what is fueling banditry in the first place. Let's start from there. What is fueling banditry? Because Shegumi was interviewed on that story, and he was estimating that there are at least 100,000 bandits in northwest or northern Nigeria. So I repeat, how many policemen can you draft to a school before you go? So the thing is, first we have to look at what is causing the banditry. People are disenfranchised in the system. People who feel left out, people who feel like they do not have a stake in the Nigerian project, they will continue to turn to banditry to let their voice be heard. So when you have people who have been denied access to education, denied access to social welfare, they will turn to banditry to make ends meet. So the Nigerian government has to
Some of the points you just raised, Mr. Babajide, brings to mind a recent report from the Vanguard just this morning. We have a report that says, I make 400,000 naira monthly selling bread to bandits in Kaduna. And this is coming from a suspect here. 400,000 naira monthly selling bread to bandits in Kaduna. Is this comfortable? Is this something that you'd, I mean, looking at that paper alone, looking at that story alone, how does it sound saying it this morning?
Yeah, I read that story as well, and he said that he makes 400,000 selling bread to bandits. Well, he has been arrested, and I believe he knew that they were bandits when he was supplying this bread to them. And so instead of reporting to the authorities, he kept on making brisk business from it. So I think it just goes to, and also to link it to the solution that we talked about. We have to involve the communities in this fight. Military solution alone cannot solve the problem. We have to involve community leaders. We have to involve religious leaders, because there are people in the community who know these bandits, who know their hideouts, who have access to them. So we have to involve these people and carry. So it's not just about repelling attacks. We have to go beyond repelling attacks. Let there be intelligence in going about this fight against bandits.
On insecurity now, military, looking at some of the efforts they have made, let's not just talk about the problem here, but let's also look at some of the efforts that are ongoing. And on the Punch, military deploys additional troops in Kebbi Forest, and here there's report that a teacher has been rescued, 3 students have been rescued. Also, how did you perceive this information, seeing it on the papers this morning?
Well, we'll take that, because you can't always value. So if some people have been rescued, say congratulations to them and their families. But for every one person that has been rescued, I tell you there are at least 20 others that are still in captivity. I mean, the Senate president was lamenting about the impact of insecurity on education. But this thing is not just happening. Yes, it's getting worse, but it's not just happening. Chibok happened in 2014, and till date, we still have probably at least 100 students in captivity. So yes, we'll celebrate the wins, but we really have to do more on that front.
There's another escape, actually, if we're celebrating wins in that same mood. But I would have to put it, when I bring out the details, when I read the story, I'm going to put out the question. 15 Niger kidnapped victims escape from Zamfara forest as drunken guard sleeps off. Is this something that, abductees, those that abducted rather, do they have to wait for their abductors to sleep before or get drunken before there's a means of escape? Because when the story came up, some Nigerians were saying, oh, 15 is not enough. We still have hundreds of children, pupils that are still in captivity. But we're talking about rescue now, and I mean, the military is doing some work, and those that are abducted are trying to escape as well. So how did you see this story?
Well, I think it was a stroke of good luck that they were able to escape, because their kidnappers were drunk. Yeah, but like you said, we cannot keep on waiting for good luck to happen before the government can guarantee the security of lives and property of Nigerian people. So I think that so we cannot.
Okay, if you can hear me, can you hear me, Mr. Babajide?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, let's ask. I'd like to also ask that now that we see these insecurity situations focused on schools, what other effects, aside schools being shut down, what other effects do you see insecurity? What are the effects of insecurity on education in Nigeria? There's another story on education, but I'd like to start with that before we delve into that angle. Mr. Babajide, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go on.
Okay, yeah, like I was saying, unfortunately, education in Nigeria was already in crisis even before the security issue started, because there was gross dilapidation of infrastructure and lack of qualified teachers and all those other problems. So now, when you add insecurity into the mix, especially in northern Nigeria, it is really really concerning, because when you look at this recent stories, especially in Kebbi, in Zamfara, in Katsina, you find out that either they are shutting boarding schools down totally, or they are closing junior secondary schools. I think in one state it was as much as 100 schools were being shut. So, and these are states that are already disadvantaged. Remember that these are states that are already disadvantaged in the first place. So, I read the story where a parent was saying, instead of sending his children to school where he won't be able to sleep at night and worry about them, let them just be with him at home. So this tells you the depth of the problem that we are facing. I mean, we cannot continue to go on like this. And the Nigerian education is really going to face a huge crisis if this insecurity issue cannot be nipped in the bud.
Okay, because of our time, I'll take this last question with you. And you know, the National Identification Number registration exercise has been ongoing. And by the 30th of June, if you've been receiving text messages, you would have seen the promptings of the end of that linkage with your SIM cards. Now, the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board had these requirements for students and for candidates to link their national identification number with registration. But now they are also coming out to say that the requirement has dropped the revenue to 5.8 billion naira. It has dropped the revenue that, you know, JAMB generates from just registration. What does this mean to you? I mean, looking at that information on the Punch newspaper this morning.
Yeah, well, when I read that story, JAMB Registrar Professor Oloyede said that the introduction of NIN was to curb exam malpractices and fraud in the system. So he said, it was natural that the revenue was going to drop, because enrollment dropped from over 2 million students per annum to about 1.3, 1.4 students. But I think there's also another side to that story, because we all know how difficult it is to get NIN in Nigeria. So I think it is beyond exam malpractices. Some students are actually being denied the opportunity of enrolling, because depending on where you live in Nigeria, actually getting your NIN can be quite an Herculean task. So I think the government needs to do more in making it easily available, so that people do not get left out just because they are not able to get their names.
Thank you so much for joining us on the newspaper review this morning, Mr. Babajide.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yes, we have just heard Mr. Babajide join us as a public affairs analyst on the newspaper review this morning. I'd like to thank you for joining us on the newspaper review this morning, wherever you're watching us from, and also for our public affairs analyst, Mr. Babajide, who joined us via Skype this morning to talk about issues in Nigeria. My name is Esther Kalu, but that's not all we have for you today. We also have details of some of the stories that you've heard on the 3 p.m. news and the 9 p.m. news. And like I always tell you, till I see you again, do stay safe. Bye-bye.